Not every time, but sometimes when I post a Django transcription or even a solo, invariably there's somebody who says, "Now play with two fingers like Django." Stop it. I can play with two fingers like Django, not like Django, but I can play with two fingers because I study Django a lot. And every time I look at something Django does, I do learn it with two fingers. But God has given me four fingers that are functioning. So while there are some things that are inevitably simpler and more effective to play with two fingers, others are simply not. I'm sure Django before his accident used all his four fingers, and had he not had the accident, I'm pretty sure he would have kept on using all his four fingers. His accident, of course, forced him to relearn and recreate a style of playing that utilized two fingers. And I'll go as far as to say that for some aspects of his playing, it was an advantage that he had two fingers. Not, of course, for all aspects. So while learning from Django and learning the way he played with two fingers is very useful, I highly suggest using your four fingers or finding that balance where you're able to play some passages as Django would have, but also many more passages will be a lot more convenient to play with all four fingers. In this video, I want to share with you what I consider to be important to know about Django's playing when he plays with two fingers, and how to adapt it, or how I've adapted to my playing, but also not become a total nut about it and not have to play everything with two fingers because Django did. That just doesn't make sense. Hopefully by the end of this video you'll have a clearer idea of how and when to use the two fingers, and possibly when not to, so it won't become such a big deal and such a paranoia in your playing, should I use two fingers or not. For those who don't know me, I'm Dario Napoli, 20-year touring and recording artist, founder of the Under the Tuscan Sun Gypsy Jazz Camp, author of Gypsy Jazz Guitar Mastery, blah, 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 all that good stuff. Let's dive into it. Like I said before, Django used two fingers. We all know that. And I also said that in some instances, I find that to be an advantage. And why is that? Well, for starters, two fingers, especially these two fingers that Django used, are the strongest fingers of any human being's hand. I don't care who you are. If you're Hulk, still your pinky won't be as strong as your index. That's just how God designed us to be. Luckily for Django, in his accident, he lost use of these two fingers, which he did use for chords, but these two, the strongest two fingers he could use. So a lot of the sound that Django achieves is thanks to that strength of grip and that strength of those two individual fingers. So keeping that in mind when choosing how to finger certain passages is important, because any time, in my opinion, that you can favor one of these fingers over one of these fingers, in other words, anytime you can use any fingers to your left as opposed to any fingers to your right, I think that's a good rule of thumb to use to establish which fingers you're going to use. The second reason is that by having only two fingers to use, it simplifies incredibly the fingering of certain scales or arpeggios, because it's either one finger or the other. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to bird anyone, but one or the other. So there's a simplified fingering of things, and there's more strength in your grip. So those are two advantages, or can be two advantages, depending on what you're trying to play and what kind of passage you're executing. Having said that, of course, there's going to be passages and phrases that are going to be much simpler to play when you can use all four fingers, even if you have a little bit reduced strength, which you can anyway develop on these fingers. What I suggest doing is to keep an open mind and go through Django's material and go through Django's phrases, analyzing and understanding how and why he might have done things in a certain way, but then filtering that through your needs and your phrasing and your musicality overall. With all that being said, there are some things that, especially in the style of gypsy jazz guitar, I would actually recommend that you would learn with two fingers. And let's look at them. Okay, so the very first thing I would recommend learning with two fingers which I use all the time and which I think is a lot simpler, is the minor arpeggio, the basic minor arpeggio. Let's take an A minor. So while there would be nothing wrong to play this, let's say using your pinky, I think especially in faster passages, you would have a lot less stability and a lot less strength using your pinky. Whereas if you learn to use two fingers, in my opinion, a minor arpeggio will be a lot simpler to execute. So you would have A minor arpeggio. So down, up, down, down, up, down, down, and here's the slide, up, down, and up. Keep in mind, the slide is vital to create fluidity in reaching the higher octaves. So once you hit that A note again, to reach over to the C, I recommend a slide. Of course, that doesn't mean I have to hear it. I mean, I might want to hear it, but otherwise it's not necessary. You can just slide very crisply and not perceive it as an actual slide, but you're transitioning. And that way you can reach the higher octaves with a lot more ease. Now, a great variation of the minor arpeggio is the minor arpeggio with an added second. So you have a 1, 2, and minor 3. And then 5, and then root again. And you can repeat that. And reach the third octave. However, here's where things get tricky or can change. For me, on the way down, I prefer using the two fingers, and between the 2 and the flat third, I go with a slide. Instead of playing it like this, there would be nothing wrong with that. But I have a much steadier and much stronger feeling personally when I slide. And again, those slides don't need to be heard if you move them crisply enough. But I just have a lot stronger feeling when I play it that way than if I were to play it. For me, there's a lot more dispersion of energy and a lot less steadiness. Try it and see if you like it. For me, it's much easier to play the descending way with two fingers and sliding. Now that changes when I'm playing in the opposite direction. When I'm playing this pattern in the opposite direction, I prefer actually using all fingers. That means, well, it could be second finger here, 2, 1, and then here I'm going with my third finger. I could go with my second, but I prefer my third here. Second, first, again, pinky. Now keep in mind, I'm trying to keep that alternate picking while maintaining the rest stroke picking of the gypsy style picking. So that's why I'm trying to find that fingering where I can keep the alternating pattern while rest stroking. But to do that, I have developed different ways in which I go descending or ascending. Is that right or is that wrong? I don't know. For me, it works that way, and I want you to do the same. Try and figure out individually how that works for you or what works best for you. There is no absolute right or wrong. You want to filter everything that you hear with your experience and with your trial and error. I could play it with two fingers, also the descending part. maybe Django would have played it that way. But I find it easier to use all my fingers in this direction. In this direction, I find it easier to use 2 fingers and sliding. Now you could apply the same to the major. There would be nothing wrong with that. Again, you want to try it. Django for sure, if he had to play this phrase, I guess he would play it with the 2 fingers. I prefer using my 3rd finger, even though many players here would play with their pinky. Again, there would be nothing wrong with that, but I find that middle way the best for me, where I'm not using my 2nd finger on the major pattern, but I'm using my 3rd finger. Now 1 and 3 for me is a very solid connection where it's always 1 and 3. But again, if you feel better using 1 and 2, by all means. Or if you feel better using pinky. Again, there's no right or wrong. You want to try them all though and make sure that when you pick one, that's the most comfortable solution for you. Again, on the major also you can add that 2nd note. So it can be 1, 2, and 3. And as you can see also here, I'm going with a slide. I just feel a lot stronger on the way down to use 1 and 3, but sliding so that I always have my 1st finger as the anchor to the whole phrase. Again, nothing wrong if you use your pinky. Or if you use your 2nd finger. Nothing wrong. I prefer using my 3rd finger and sliding. And on the way back up, it'll be slightly different because I'm actually using but this way enables me to alternate while still rest stroking through the passage on the way back. Now another place where I love to use the 2 fingers is on major 7 arpeggios. For example, if we say just take a C, many players would play this like this, right? And again, there would be nothing wrong. But again, the feeling of solidity and of strength that I have when I play is greatly superior, for me at least, when I'm going with 2 fingers on a major 7. Same thing if I use it on the C major 7 at the 8th fret. Let's look at them slowly. And at the 8th fret, so again, let's look at those crucial slides which allow me to play in higher octaves more comfortably. Here I'm sliding from the G to the B, so 3rd fret to 7th fret. And then on the way back, I'm going to be playing a different fingering most of the times. So that it's simpler to alternate. From the 8th fret, that's where my slide is. Again, it's from that E all the way to the G, right? But that way I can also access the higher octaves if I want to, right? Because and I'm steady and I'm in position always. So these are just a couple of starting points where I would consider using the 2 fingers as opposed to using all 4. Over time, actually, you'll probably get to a point where you can use either 2 fingers or all of them as you keep working through. And it's good to, depending on the style and the situation you're in, to be able to transition. But if you're really interested in Django's style and Django's sound, going through the exercise of evaluating where you could be using 2 fingers or these 3 fingers and where you could omit your pinky is a good one, because it will lead you closer to that sound that Django had where he was using these stronger fingers. Another pattern where I like to use mostly 2 fingers is the A minor 6 or F half diminished or D9 essentially, right? Especially this time on the way up. So if I have, for example, if I take it from the F half diminished, I'll have 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. At this point I could do 2. So I could do the whole passage with 2 fingers. Would be nothing wrong with it. I personally prefer to go at this point when I'm playing this F sharp, I prefer using my 3rd finger. So only in one of those I'm going to be using my 3rd finger. On the way up, I have a totally different fingering usually. Now you can ask yourself, why would you use 2 different fingerings on the way up and on the way down? I don't really have an exact answer for that. As I keep playing and as I keep practicing and as I keep experimenting with phrasings and arpeggios and scales and trying all different kinds of solutions, I end up with what I find best or what I find most comfortable or most convenient. And that's the gist of all of this. You want to go through all of this yourself and do your experiments, make your assumptions, and come to your conclusions. Of course, what's important is that the notes are the correct ones. But how you connect those areas and those arpeggios and those scales is an individual quest, where yes, you can get suggestions from myself or anyone else, but in the end it's a great exercise to go through them yourself. And always think, how would a Django played it here? More than likely, at least. And how does that feel? Sometimes it'll feel right, and then you want to keep that. Sometimes it won't feel like the best solution, and then you want to find your own best solution. Okay, so I really hope this makes sense to you, and I hope it helps give some clarity as to how to go about the whole dilemma of should I use 2 fingers or not. And my answer to that is absolutely use the 2 fingers primarily when it's comfortable, when it's possible, when it feels right to you. But you have 4 fingers and there is nothing wrong with using them. Once again, keep in mind, when you do use 2 fingers, you'll have more strength. But of course you might use some comfort in some passages. When you use 4 fingers, you'll have less strength, but of course some passages will be more comfortable. So that's the compromise you always want to think about when creating your phrasings and your fingering patterns. Certainly don't hesitate to leave your comments or questions or ideas and thoughts in the comments below. I definitely want to know them. Also, as always, look into the description for resources that I think could be useful. Gypsy Jazz Guitar Mastery is my new ebook, my free Zooms, my free transcriptions, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace.